Florida taxpayers fund the third largest prison system in the country, feeding and clothing more than 102,000 inmates every day. 17% of those are elderly and have medical needs.
And for some, those needs can be quite costly, but just how much are taxpayers paying for elderly inmates? Fox News reporter Russell Colburn found out some alarming numbers.
In the Florida prison system, inmates 50 and above are considered elderly due to their lifestyles prior to incarceration. What may be surprising is more than half of them are behind bars for violent crimes like murder and rape. So society pays to care for those who in many cases are its biggest enemies. And as we found out, the state's hands are tied. Razor wire fences, cold steel slammed shut, locking elderly inmates inside. But should they stay there? While many across the state sit in solitary cells, things are different at various Florida facilities which specialize in caring for elderly inmates, some with complex medical needs. Take a look at this. Of the over 17,000 elderly inmates currently behind bars, 18.5% are in for robbery and violent personal offenses. Include sexual offenses and murder-manslaughter to that, those numbers skyrocket, making up over 40% of elderly crime. But the state has no choice but tend to their medical needs.
It is a constitutional obligation to provide appropriate health care to our inmate population, regardless of their needs and how expensive those might be. 44% of our hospital days were because of inmates who are over 50 years old. It costs about $53 a day to house an average inmate in the state of Florida. Of that $53, almost $12 goes to inmate health care.
That adds up to about $19,500 per year per inmate. And they get pricier with age. According to the DOC, when an inmate turns 60, it takes an average of $70,000 a year to provide for them. In Chattahoochee, many fit to give back to their community head here, to River Junction Work Camp.
Keeping all the state vehicles looking, as you can see, quite well. It's nice and shiny.
Jimmy Lee Kirkland gets to do on the inside what was one of his favorite tasks on the outside, making cars look new again. He's serving 5 years for cocaine possession, but feels taken care of.
They don't treat us like convicts or inmates. They treat us like we human beings like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? They don't try to run us down or try to make us feel lower than we already are. They help us.
Kirkland is receiving an education through River Junction. Inside, Edward Childers showed us how cells are traded for dormitory-style housing, which makes it easier to care for the elderly inmates' needs. Childers, who's serving 19 years for armed robbery, handles maintenance at the facility, where he's happy to be around his peers.
With the senior citizens here at River Junction, we're able to interact with each other on a calmer level. And I think the officers see that, and so they treat us accordingly to that. So as far as the living conditions here, everybody gets along well. A prime example is one inmate can bump against another inmate here at River Junction, and he'll say, "Excuse me."
But unfortunately, Childress and Kirkland are the minority. Some of the state's most violent offenders are taking the biggest portion of taxpayer money. By state law, criminals must serve 85% of their sentence. The Florida Senate has tried changing that, offering programs which would release inmates early if they could prove they've been rehabilitated. Those programs have failed every single time. So the question is, do we set some inmates free or lock them up for good?
Society, Floridians have to make a decision, or might have to make a decision at some point about the risks involved and what they want to do, where they want to go from here.
Childress still has 2 years before he'll return to his Pensacola family. He's missed his children grow up. When we spoke to Kirkland, he only had 10 days remaining on his sentence.
We call it a junction because it's like a crossroads. If you make it to River Junction, you're halfway there.
He was released just yesterday. According to the Department of Corrections, Florida's inmate population is on the decline, as they've been able to close a few facilities in recent years. And as attrition hits the regular inmates, the DOC predicts that the elderly prison population will start to decrease as well.